Okay, good morning, everybody. As we go to the chitas of today, we're holding in the portion of Ada. Today is Friday, the sixth reading of that portion. We're holding in the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, chapter 21, verse number 22. Ahiyah was at that time. Vayem Avimelech, and Avimelech said, Ufichal Sar Tzvoy, and Fichal, the head of his troops, said El Avram to Abraham, Lamer saying, Elikim imach, God is with you, God is with you, whatever you do, God is with you. And therefore, first what Rashi says, Elikim oisach, that Lefishara, since he saw, so he said this because he saw that he left the locality of Zdoim in peace. He had fought the kings. He had fallen into his hands, and his wife has been remembered with a child in his old age. So he said, I see that God is with you. And therefore, let's swear to me by God, if you'll deal falsely with me, ulenini, into my son, ulenechti, or to my grandson, all the kindness that I've done to you, tasi imadi, you should do it for me, and with the land that you have sojourned in. Now she says, from here we see the extent of her father's concern. It goes to the grandson. This refers to the that I said to you, I gave you the land. I said you can live wherever you want to live, stay wherever you want to stay. So Abraham said, I'll make this vow. This is an important vow because ultimately, this was one of the Medrash said this was a vow even about Yerushalayim, that he would never conquer Yerushalayim. That's why David HaMelech bought Yerushalayim later on from the Yevusim, because of this vow that Avram Avinu did. I'm going to make this vow. But then Avram Avinu mentioned to Avimelech about the Be'er Hamayim, about the well, Asher Gozlu Avda Avimelech, which the servants of Avimelech stole one of his wells. Now says he argued with him about this, that what you have no right. Because whatever Avram was trying to do, these Plishtim were trying to cover it up. Avimelech and Avimelech said, Lo yadaiti, I didn't know. Me asa sadavar, I did not know who has done this. And you also haven't told me, and I haven't heard about this until today. And Avram took flock and cattle, he gave it to Avimelech, and they made this treaty. We learn from this the whole concept of giving somebody something makes a kinyan, makes an acquirement by handing over something to somebody. That's why in Jewish tradition, we make a kinyan with the witness, in front of witnesses, somebody picks something, we give him something and he picks it up. And that's the way the kinyan the acquirement was done. It's done the same thing over here. Avram Avinu gives him something, and that's the way they made a kinyan. They made they established a fact, so to say. Then Avram set a pride to the site 7 oz of flock. So Avimelech said to Abraham, what are these 7 sheep? Why'd you separate 7 sheep? So Avram said, I'm asking you to accept these 7 sheep, so it shall be as a testimony that I have dug this well. Now she says, so that the testimony for me referring to this action. Again, that Avram Avinu connected it to an action, a physical transaction. Le'eda, that this Ada is a feminine word, as she says. It's a one bearing testimony. The monument, there'll be a witness. So also you have the same thing later, that Lloyd makes a monument, and he creates this monument later on that it comes as a testimony. So the building of a monument is a testimony. That I have dug this well. Avimelech shepherds were quarreling with Avram shepherds about this well, saying, we dug it. They both decided that whoever would appear by the well and the water would rise towards him, the well belonged to him. And what happened was that the water, when Avram Avinu came to the well, the water rose up to him. We know that this blessing that Avram had and Yitzhak had and Yaakov had, that whenever they came to a well, the water would rise up to him. And Chassidus talks a lot about this whole concept, but that's what the Medrash tells us, that whenever Avram, we find about Avram Avinu, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that when they came to the well, the water would rise towards them. Okay, Be'er Sheva. That's why they called it Be'er Sheva, the well of oath. Because over there, they made this vow. You can go today to the city of Be'er Sheva. It's in the Negev. Ayichus Bris. Negev, it's near Gaza. Ayichus Bris Be'er Sheva. And they made a covenant in the city of Be'er Sheva. Ayakam Avimelech Ufichal Tzartzai. And Avimelech and Fichal, head of his army, Yeshuv el Eretz Plishtin, and went back to return to Philistine, which was at that time Gaza. And then Avram Avinu opened up an inn in Beersheba. And he proclaimed the name of God, the God that, he started opened up his center of education, of godly education in Beersheba. Now she says the word Eshel, Vayita Eshel, because it says Vayita, he planted a tree, Eshel. What's an Eshel? Now, Shmuel, there's an argument between these two sages. They differ what it was. What was this Eshel? One said it was an orchard to provide fruits for traveling meals. The other said it was not an orchard, it was a building, it was an inn, a tent at that time, containing all types of fruit. Although it's usually used to meaning planting a tree, Vayita Eshel, you find the verb nata used concerning pitching a tent. As we see later in Daniel, it says, Vayita ahole apodna, he pitched the tents of his palace. So even though it says Vayita means usually planting, so it makes sense more according to the rabbi that says he planted an orchard. But we find that Vayita can also mean a tent. So Vayita Eshel can also mean that he planted an inn. He established a house, a place of gathering. Vayikra Sham means, he proclaimed, means that through this Eshel, through this tent, through this orchard, the name of the Holy One, blessed be, was proclaimed as God's entire universe. After the travelers, why? Because he would have, Avram Avinu would invite many people to come and eat. And then, after the travelers had eaten and drinking, he would tell them, bless the one who made the food. You got to bless God. You think you ate from my food? This is all God's food. And you have eaten, that belongs to the one who spoke the world into existence. And therefore, you would demand of them to make a bracha achreina, to make a blessing after they eat. Verse 34, Vayager Avram be'eretz Plishtim yamim rabim. And the Avram sojourned in that area for many more years than he lived in Hebron, which was, as it says, 26. And Rashi goes and explains this whole thing for many years. This indicates that these years were more than the years of Hebron. He spent 25 years in Hebron and 26 years here. For he was 75 years when he left Haran. In the same year, he came and settled in Lonim, the plains of Mamre, which is Hebron. For we don't find that he settled anywhere else beforehand, since all of the places, he was like a visitor, stopping briefly and then continuing traveling. It says Avram traveled through the land. From there, he moved on. There was a famine in the land. So Abraham went down to Egypt, and he spent there 3 months in Egypt. But Pharaoh sent him away. Immediately he continued on his travels until he came and settled in Elonim, the plains of Mamre, of the Amorites of Hebron. We lived until Sodom was overturned, which is 25 years. Immediately afterwards, the Torah tells us he moved because he was ashamed of Lot, and he came to the land of Philistine. He came to the near Gaza, which he was then 99 years old. Since the angels who pronounced the instructions to him came to him the third day after his circumcision, thus making altogether 25 years since the time he settled in Hebron. Here it's written many years, indicating that there were more than the first years. Since the verse does not mean to be ambiguous but explicit, if they have exceeded the previous period by 2 years or more, it would have said so. It must be that many years were not more than 1 year more than the previous years, making it 26 years that he lived in the land of Philistine. Immediately afterwards, he left and he returned to Hebron. And that year was 12 years before the binding of Isaac. So so he left after 26 years in Beersheba. He went to Hebron for the next 12 years. And tomorrow, you're going to read Akedah Yitzchak, was 12 years after he was already in Hebron. This is all found in Seder HaOlam, in the book that's called Seder HaOlam, that goes through the chronology of the history of the world. And that completes the Chumash for today. We continue today. We're going to end today, as it said, the end of the chapter. I'm going to end today the 27th letter of the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe was saying that explaining Al Pi Kabbalah, according to Chassidus and Kabbalah, that a student, a follower of a tzaddik, when he passes, he has the capability to connect to the tzaddik's, more to the tzaddik's essence, to his ruach, and even to his neshama. And he can connect them because the ruach and the neshama of the tzaddik is divested itself from the body. And the neshama goes lamaila in a greater sense, in the unlimited revelation. And therefore, the student or anybody who wants to connect to the tzaddik, to the spirit of the tzaddik, that's to the emotions of the tzaddik. The spirit of the tzaddik, the Alter Rebbe explained, was the faith and the fear and the love of the tzaddik. And he even go higher than that. He can go to the neshama of the tzaddik, which is the intellect, the comprehension of the tzaddik, which he can comprehend. Really, it takes for a student to comprehend his teacher 40 years. But that's what the teacher is here in this world, because the teacher doesn't really reveal everything to the student when he's in the world, because he's embodied in a body, in his own seichel, in his own intellect, and he doesn't have the capability to reveal the essence of the teacher. It takes the student 40 years to sit and learn with the teacher, and the teacher should reveal him his true seichel. Now that the neshama has left the body, so the student has the capability to even touch and reveal the neshama of the tzaddik, to understand the tzaddik much more than he understood him when he was here in this world. Now the Alter Rebbe continues. There's another kind of illumination from the tzaddik to his students. However, it does not vest itself truly in their minds, as in the case of the first kind of illumination that derives from the ruach of the tzaddik, whereby his faith and fear and love are intellectually integrated and internalized within his disciple. It radiates over them from above, encompassing and transcending them. For it's very lofty and inhibits it from descending and being integrated in them. And it sends from the tzaddik's ruach and the neshama to the source of that the tzaddik goes to the source which it comes from. Which in Kabbalah, it's the Kabbalistic words over here, the Hainu lechakal tapuchin kadishin. The Zohar says that the tzaddik returns to the orchard of the holy apples, Chakal Tapuchin Kaddish, which means to the sphere of Malchus in the world of Atzilus. It's called the orchard of the holy apples. Many, many interpretations on the orchard of the holy apples. We say this by Mincha and Shabbos. Chakal the Mincha of Shabbos is Chakal Tapuchin Kaddishin, that we all ascend on the Mincha of Shabbos to the orchard of the holy apples. That's really the concept of Tainug, the aspect of delight, which is the highest level of Shabbos itself, is the concept of delight. That's when do we, because Shabbos is a general delight, but when do we reach up to the highest levels of delight on Shabbos is by the Mincha of the Shabbos, by the Mincha, by the afternoon service of Shabbos. By Day Zeh, Nase Sham Yichud, and this ascent affects a union there between the spiritual feminine sphere of Malchus and the spiritual masculine level of Malchus that transcends it. In that moment is the fusion, because we learned that Malchus, the attribute of kingship in Atzilus, in the world of emanation, is the receiver. What does it receive? From Zav Malchus, from the masculine aspect of Malchus. So on that moment, Hakal Tapuch Kaddishin, we have the unity of the masculine and feminine. Idealos Mayim Nufim. That means through the elevation of the feminine waters that the tzaddik did in this world, meaning by the means of his mortal initiate spiritual arousal, constituted by all the tzaddik's actions of Torah and divine service in which he engaged all the days of his life. For I will explain below in the next letter, we'll get to the next letter, all of man's lifelong labors and attainment are revealed from their former state of concealment and shines forth at the time of his passing. So, we'll get to that in the Mitzvah. That's a general concept that when a person passes away, it says that at that moment there's a great power of Ava in the world, and because everything comes to be revealed, everything at that moment, Kol Mashasa, whatever he did in his world comes to, so to say, be revealed, because it comes to greet him. We mentioned before, when a person does a good deed and learns Torah, he creates an aura around him. He has Gan Eden around him, but we don't see it. We're doing good deeds, Baruch Hashem. We're learning a lot of Torah. We're davening. We're creating this aura around us, but we don't see it. The second a person, that's like a tzaddik in a way, the second a person passes away, it's revealed. It greets it. This aura, this unbelievable Gan Eden that has been surrounding him for all these years is now revealed to the tzaddik, revealed to everybody, and especially to a tzaddik. So there's a great influx of love. We always speak positive because we also mentioned before that he creates a Gehenna around him. So hopefully he does tshuva before he passes on. And now there's the revelation, the aura of Gan Eden around this person, every person. V'nizral b'charkal tapilchim kaddish. And in this level of Atzilus, Malchus Atzilus, the soul source is implanted exceedingly sublime lights. L'umas hatartenim, corresponding to the resulting from the nether illuminations, Ashahem Teirasiv Avdasu, which is actually his teachings and his learnings. So the interconnection between what happens, whatever he acquired in the world through his Torah study, is actually now revealed on a much greater revelation, because, as we just said, the revelation of Chakal Tapuch and Kaddishin, the revelation is now revealed in a much greater, in Lamaila, and since it's revealed above, this revelation is revealed above, it is revealed below. So his divine service thus implants lofty illuminations above, which are revealed and descend below at the time of his passing. That's why, based on the Zohar, the Zohar said about himself, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said that the day of my passing, you should make a celebration, Hilula. And you should make a fire, bonfire, because he said, that's my neshama. My neshama is actually not a flame anymore. It becomes a bonfire. It becomes an unbelievable fire. It becomes a big flame. And that till today, we celebrate his passing. But the truth is that happens with every tzaddik. But he asked that a student should create a celebration, Lag Bohema. We should create a celebration. His passing, his yahrzeit. Passing. Because when the tzaddik passes away, he said that you shouldn't worry that, tzaddik by a sad situation, begashmis, but beruchnius, you should realize that the passing of the tzaddik is going to be a great illumination in the world. You have a greater capability of connecting to the tzaddik and feeling his warmth more than when he's alive. And this illumination which radiates from above, despite its transcendingness, right? We celebrate Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, we make great celebration. And the truth is that's why we celebrate every passing of a tzaddik. Not only celebrate, but even the passing of a regular person, a yahrzeit, because the concept of the yahrzeit is that is a revelation of the neshama in the world again, in this physical world. And therefore, it's so powerful that it still instills in the hearts thoughts of repentance and good deeds. And all the good deeds born of this illumination, which radiates from the light implanted in the above-mentioned orchards, are called successive generations of offshoots. That's why you understand that tzaddik never loses his influence that he had in this world. Not only that, the tzaddik actually gives greater influence on the world, even much more powerful. So the teaching to the tzaddik becomes even more greater than when he's alive, because it creates generations and generations of offshoots. Because more the light that's revealed in the upper worlds, it ultimately affects the lower worlds. Since the illumination itself grew directly out of the light implanted by the tzaddik, the good deeds in which the illumination in turn inspires are its offshoots of a second generation. We're holding many generations. After the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, etc. Never ends. It continues. As the Torah says, the blessing goes for 2,000 generations. But this radiance is greatly hidden and concealed. Just as the sun radiates to the stars from below the earth. Is brought down in the Zohar in reference to Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher. Peace be unto him. That's a memory. That after his blessing, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Arizal of the Zohar says that there's a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu in every single person. So his passing created the capability and a spark that it comes down to every single Jew in every generation. The Shishim Rebbe has done 600,000 souls. Just like the sun, which radiates to the 600,000 stars from below the earth. Moshe Rabbeinu, so too with tzaddikim who are successors by means of this Torah spiritual service, every tzaddik illuminates the successive generations of Oshuts, his direct disciples, in turn their disciples, and so on and so forth. And they continue when we follow the teachings of the tzaddik. So we can Torah Tzivalana Moshe Marashik, and we all learn Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, which Moshe Rabbeinu gave. So too today we're learning the Alter Rebbe. Continue to be inspired. We are the offshoots in a way. We are the offshoots, generations of the Alter Rebbe, Shem Tov, etc., etc. So, man, the Alter Rebbe spoke above. We finished chapter 27, not chapter, the letter 27. The Rebbe spoke above about those who benefit from the gift of the tzaddik continues to bequeath after his passing, from the ruach that remains in the lower Gan Eden. There he does not say all his disciples, but only amongst his disciples. Moreover, he adds that the extent of the spiritual bequest received by each chassid varies according to the level of his bond close to the tzaddik during his lifetime and after his passing, out of the abundant love. This is so because there the Alter Rebbe speak of the receiving from him a sublime spiritual attribute of faith, awe, and love. Hence, since as the Alter Rebbe concludes there, anything spiritual is elicited only by the means of abundant of a love. If you have a love to the tzaddik, then he will respond. It follows that the request of such a stature is drawn down only to those disciples whose bond to him was particularly close. Here, however, at the close of the letter, Alter Rebbe speaks of a degree of illumination which radiates over them from above. Everybody, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu gave, the Zohar says, Moshe Rabbeinu gave a nitzvah to every Jew, whether they love him or they don't love him. Encompassing and transcending them. This degree, which instilled in their hearts thoughts and repentance and good deeds, radiates over all his disciples, about all those who may consider his disciples, because they become servants of God through his Torah and his worship. So if we are all inspired by the Alter Rebbe, whether you're a chassid, not a chassid, he didn't write this book, the Tanya, for Chassidim. He wrote it for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish nation. We argue that from the former kind of benefaction, that which is dependent upon being bonded with a great love, refers specifically to those who were the tzaddik's disciples during his lifetime. It is they who are close to him both during his lifetime and afterlife. By contrast, the kind of benefit which transcends as opposed to the integrated within them also applies to those who became the tzaddik's disciple after his passing. In the sense that they drew close to the God as a result of his teachings. These disciples are successive generations of his offshoots, the same way as the radiance of the Moses continues after his passing to illuminate generation after generation. So too the Alter Rebbe continues to illuminate generation after generation. And that concludes the 27th letter of the Alter Rebbe, which he wrote to the Chassidim in Israel. The Chassidim of Rab Mendel Haradoka passed away, and he inspired them to continue in the life of the tzaddik, especially them that they were with the tzaddik, and they learned from the tzaddik, from Rab Mendel, that they should continue in his ways, and that he's connected to them even greater than before. Today is the 16th day of the month. The Tillim of the day is chapter 79 to chapter 82. You do those chapters of Psalms, you do the Chitas. The Rebbe writes today on the 16th day of Cheshvan, thought is a garment and a servant of the intellect and emotion. Thought, machshava. We mentioned in Tanya, machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh. There are three garments. Machshava is thought, dibur is speech, and ma'aseh is action. Machshava, thought. Thought is the garment for the intellect and emotions. Even when it's not serving the intellect or emotion, it continues to function. You can't stop your thought. Stop thinking, you're dead. Thinking, it continues to function, thinking and meditating. However, this activity is then not only devoid of content, because you can have thoughts, vain thoughts, empty thoughts. That's expression, a quarter for your thought. But it's always also open to depravement thought. They explain that alien or evil thoughts are caused by emptiness of the head. People shouldn't think that thinking nothing is not thinking bad. when we think nothing, that is the best vessel, so to say, to start thinking bad. But when the mind is occupied and the thought is something to serve, and there's no room for stupid and vain thoughts, devoid of substance. So never waste your mind. Never waste your thought. Always make it important. My dear friends, I wish you a wonderful Shabbos. I hope that you will learn Chitas tomorrow on your own. And we will meet together on Sunday, which we will learn at 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the Chitas of the day. I wish you a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos. God